In 10 minutes, I will show you how to apply to a beautiful scholarship I found in a university in Australia. In 10 minutes, I will do that. All right, let the time begin. Oh, I'm not wearing a wristwatch, but yeah, let the time begin. First, I want to tell you about the University of Macquarie or Macquarie University in Sydney, Australia. What are some of the benefits of this scholarship? Well, Masters by Research and PhD program, and you can even combine both. But let me tell you something. If you're worried because it's Masters by Research, trust me on this. Anybody can do masters by research. You can do masters by research. So don't be scared about that. All right, let's go on. So you get your tuition covered. You also receive stipend. For one of them, you receive stipend up until 70,000. Yes, $70,000 Australian dollars. And you also get placement in different industries. For one of them, I also found you receive project training package of $10,000, 10,000 Australian dollars. And for many of them too, you don't even need research proposal, which I think is really interesting. You don't need research proposal for some of them. You just need to contact a supervisor. Now, all of this, I will teach you how to do in 10 minutes. You only need to take two steps. Step number one is to find a scholarship, and step number two is to apply. Don't worry, I've done step number one for you, which is to find the scholarship. Now, step number two would be to apply. But first, before we go on, let me explain some things. This is the simplest and quickest guide you'll find to applying to scholarships. But before I go on, I need to ask you two questions, and I would love you to tell me the answers to these two questions. Number one, where are you currently watching me from, and what are the countries you're interested in? Where would you like to study? Is it Australia? Is it China? Is it Hong Kong? Just tell me the countries you'd like to study, and I'll look for scholarships in those countries for you. So just mention them in the comment section. Question two, do you ever struggle with a scholarship application? I mean, it can be daunting, it can be challenging, to be honest. To say the least, it can be frustrating. However, I've opened some few slots in my calendar. You can check and just book a one-to-one session with me. For example, in this meeting with Lamy, we had to review his research proposal before he contacted a supervisor. You know, one good thing to do is to contact a supervisor attaching your research proposal and the CV. So in this video, we actually reviewed his proposal and he was able to submit a strong application. So if you want a guide, a one-to-one session would really do that for you to give you that strong support you need for your application. Now, let's jump right into the video. So here we have the Macquarie University, Sydney, Australia, and we're looking at graduate research scholarships. Well, let's look at the funding opportunities. We have for graduate diploma of research, we have for masters of research, we have for doctor of philosophy, and we have a combined master of research and PhD program. And many of these scholarships, like I mentioned, cover full tuition, living allowance, additional living allowance, a fixed sum or one payment. For example, one of them is a one-off payment of 70 grand, 70,000 Australian dollars each year. And you also have health cover, like health insurance given to you. And there are different pathways, so you can read up on this. For many of this scholarship, the deadline is 31st of October, but for some, it is 31st July. So you want to check on these ones, but I'll show you some of them. You need to check your eligibility, find a scholarship, and apply for a scholarship. Well, let me show you what to do then. So if you come to the scholarship search page, I will leave a link in the description to this part. Come to find a scholarship and then just select, you'll find it automatically in domestic, depending on where you are. But I've selected international and you find 21 international scholarships. For some of them, the deadline have passed, like you can see here. So you have to be careful in looking at that. However, I would recommend going through this thing one after the other. Going through them one after the other would be good. For example, this one is art and social science and how feasible were early human migration across Asia, art and social science. So there are five. You need to go through each of them, but because we're trying to make this video in 10 minutes, we just go ahead to show you some of them that I've opened and you can look at them yourself if you're interested. Now, the first one I have here is towards total digital control of biological system. And here you already have a research context provided. It says all current methods for control of biological systems are limited by existing genetic information of that system. Now, this scholarship has its particular aim and you can check it out. It's for PhD, international and domestic. The deadline is 31st of October, 2025. And you've got the research context here. Now, it offers training on these four things, But if you have a background in biochemistry, molecular or synthetic biology, microbiology, chemistry, you can apply for this scholarship and it covers your free tuition and living allowance. Now, just something to keep in mind here on how to apply. It says before submitting your application, contact these persons. So you can contact Dr. Jake, Dr. Paul or Dr. Or Associate Professor Maciej. And here is what you have to do. You have to provide the following: a short message introducing yourself and explaining how this project would fit into your career path, and then a CV. So you see, you don't need to submit a research proposal. So how do you go about this? Well, first, let's just go to Google and here we type Paul. I don't want to pronounce the last name so I don't mispronounce it. So we type his full name and then type Google Scholar. And then when you click on this result, it brings you here. And there, here you find him. And you can also find his affiliation here at the University of Macquarie. Now, these are his publications, paper he has authored or co-authored. And you want to look at the top five. And you want to look at the top five papers. For example, this is 2020, this is 2021. So look at his recent papers. And when contacting him, please make reference to some of his recent papers, particularly as it refers or it relates to this particular research. That shows that you have interest in him and his works. So one thing you always want to do when contacting supervisor is to show genuine interest in them, in their work, and show how your research interest aligns with theirs. Very important, very important. So when you do that, you can then apply to the scholarship. And then when you get a confirmation, you can then go ahead to apply to the scholarship. So that is just one example. So you need to look at all the others. Now let's look at another one. This one is a different one. How feasible were early human migrations across Asia? So this is more like an historical research. So anybody, even someone who did history, can do this. Now you've also been given a research context here. I don't want to read it because we are looking at 10 minutes. It's for PhD, domestic and international student. The deadline is 31st and it covers your full tuition and a stipend. You've also been given research context here. And here you would also do field work. And part of your field work involves conducting field research in southern China and sometimes even traveling to Germany for your work. And it covers free tuition and living allowance. So you can also check this one, okay? And then go ahead to apply for this one. Let's look at another one. I think this one is one of my favorite, if not my favorite. This is an industry PhD scholarship, Digital Finance CRC. Now, they're recruiting PhD candidate interested in researching the technological, financial, or legal innovations required to enable the global transition. Now, this one is good because it's a combined PhD, master's by research and PhD program, or just for PhD. And now the application can be submitted anytime at all after course enrollment. It covers business, information technologies, and law. And take note, besides your full tuition, you also have this stipend of one form payment. Okay. Now it gives you a backdrop of it, and the available research areas are applied finance and all of these other ones, so you can check on it yourself. So the key areas: central bank digital currencies, impact investing, mining and mineral markets, and the availability, direct PhD entry or a combined 4-year Masters by Research and 2-year PhD program. It covers your full tuition, it covers living allowance. You also get supervision by a participating university and an industry partner. You also get a project training package of 10,000 US dollar, Australian dollars, and you get a placement with an industry partner. And take note, it's 70 grand, 70,000 Australian dollars for 3 years and a half. So take note of that. Now, how do you apply to this scholarship? You can lodge your application here. You can also send an email to Jian Young, the Professor Jian Young, and you can also send an email to this for further information. But I think all the information you need is here. So how do you apply to this? Now, when you click on this, it brings you here. Now, this is the Digital Finance CRC, and then you can read more here to find out what the high impact research they're involved in. Now, when you click on begin your application, it takes you here. Now, what do you need or what does the application involve? Well, personal details, address, email, phone number, just basic personal information. Then your academic qualifications, you put each of them and then you can add another one. And then you upload an academic transcript for each of your publication. Very important. Select your main discipline. And then after that, you want to outline your interest in joining the Digital Finance CRC. What's your interest? So you need to go back to this part to find out their research areas, what they're involved in, and talk about your motivation and objective, your relevant experience, and then attach your resume, and then you submit. So here you're not also writing a research proposal, although you might have to produce something relating to that. Yeah. So here you need to write a research proposal. Take note when outlining your interest in joining the Digital Finance CRC. So that's also another scholarship. Like I said, there are multiple scholarship, about 21. Check each one of them, but because of time, we're just reviewing these ones. Okay, now let's see another scholarship. Now, another beauty of looking at these things one after the other is that if you look at, for example, this scholarship, International Road to Research Scholarship, very good scholarship. It's Masters by Research, and I like this one, 31st of October. However, if you look at the eligibility, now this is why you have to read the eligibility. One of the eligibility says that at the time of the application, you have to be on shore in Australia. Take note, the word is highlighted in bold. You have to be on shore, which means you have to be in Australia, which means if you're not in Australia during your application or at the time of the application, you may not be considered for this scholarship. Okay, just something to keep in mind. So you might want to read up on the other details. However, we have another one here, which is also a Master's by Research or a PhD program, which is International Scholarship Round. And the deadline for this one is July 31st. Today is July the 4th. So if you're watching this video, please apply as soon as possible. You can read up on some of the details here about the scholarship. And now, if you look at the availability, it says part of it is at the time of application, intend to reside in Sydney, Australia during the candidature. So this one does not require you to be on shore. So you can apply from your own country. So you can also read up on the details. I've read on them, and there is nothing really that could disqualify most people. So just go ahead and read up on it and look at the components and then how to apply. Remember, it covers your food tuition, it covers living allowance, and it also gives you a travel concession. Okay, just something to keep in mind. All right, and take note, if you apply for the PhD part and you don't meet it, you could be considered for the Masters by Research part. Okay, just something to keep in mind. Okay, now something I would like to advise is if you're submitting a research proposal, it's always good to see how that your research area or your research interest aligns with not just a particular supervisor's project, but also how it aligns with the university. And I'll tell you why that is important. So, while doing further reading, I looked at the research strategy of the university. Now, they have a research strategy 2035, and it cuts across five things. I'll show you the five things later, but really their objectives are to accelerate, prepare, engage, and deliver. And they do this through five ways. Healthy people. Now you look at what is under healthy people: resilient societies, prosperous economies, secure planet, innovative technologies. So if you're writing your research proposal and you want to think of, okay, so why Macquarie University? You also want to make reference to the research strategy of the university. That would also make your application stand out. Something useful I think you should consider. Now, I know you would have questions about language tests. So I looked at the language text document. Now, there are four main things for English language admission requirements for graduate programs. The four main things are these ones here, but of interest to us would be these two. B, a recognized qualification with English as the language of instruction and other approved evidence deemed to satisfy minimum standard. You can read this up on your own, but something I want to bring to your attention is the last part here that says applications are assessed on a case-by-case basis. So if you have a strong case, you can submit this. And that, my friend, is how you can apply to this scholarship and other scholarship in 10 minutes. Remember, if you're struggling with this scholarship and the application, it can seem overwhelming, to be honest. It can seem overwhelming. If you need someone to guide you by the hand, or you just want me to review your research proposal or other assistance you'd want me to render, please let me know. My calendar is visible and you can just book a session with me. And once again, I want to tell you all the best in your scholarship application. And I'll see you next time.